Scenarios in Excel are specific to each worksheet. So visiting the scenario manager in a different sheet will produce a different set of potential scenarios. So in our sales with multiple scenarios, we have the data sheet, which if we go to the data ribbon, what if scenario manager, we can see our setup for the scenarios, normal, awful, and good. Now there is a sheet here called extra fruit, which if we go to what if scenario manager, has two sets of scenarios, super wet banana values, which I can double click to show, and you can see that they are really low values, and super wet pears, which if I double click to show, shows super wet, very low values for pear. Now, it may be that I wish to have all of these scenarios in one sheet so that I can use them and change between them at will. Well, we can do that by going back to the data sheet, going back to the scenario manager. So I'm looking at the scenarios within the data sheet, not the extra fruit ones. And there is a merge option on the right. So I can choose merge, choose which sheet contains the other scenarios I wish to have. And you can see there are two scenarios on the source sheet. So that's the extra fruit sheet. Now these other scenarios could be in other books. You can see a little drop down there. Obviously that other book would need to be open. So it may be that one person has produced a set of values, they then email them to you, but you'd like them merging into a master book, for example. So here we're taking the scenarios from another sheet, but there's nothing to stop you taking them from another sheet in another book, as long as both books are open. So I select the sheet that contains the scenarios that I would like to copy and move them into the sheet I'm currently in, which is the data sheet. So that's okay. And we can then see we now have super wet banana and super wet pears that have been brought into this sheet. Now their changing cells affect the same cell references. So as long as the sheet you're copying from to actually has them in the same place, then they'll work. So super wet banana, if I click show, places them in the correct location with the correct label at the bottom. And the same for super wet pear, correct location, correct label at the bottom. So there's a little caveat there that although you can merge scenarios from sheet to sheet, from one sheet in one book to one sheet in another book, the cell references that you're trying to get them to replace must be the same. Otherwise the values won't make any sense and there won't really be any point in the merging. Now, as well as this ability to copy and paste scenarios between sheets, we can get rid of scenarios as we see fit. We already know that we can edit them. But there will be occasions when editing isn't enough, you actually physically want to remove that scenario from your option list. So now that I've got these super wet bananas and super wet pears, I might not want the awful banana figures. So I select that particular scenario in the scenario manager and delete. And you can see that it just goes. There's no "are you sure" or anything. That set of values has now been thrown away. Same with the awful pear. I have super wet pear, so I don't need awful pear. So I select the correct scenario, delete, and that particular set of values is then discarded. So I now have less scenarios to choose from, less sets of stored values, but they're the ones that I want. And then I can choose good apples. So I can merge scenarios from other sheets, and I can remove scenarios altogether from my set of stored cells.